Hi, Joe.
Hi, Mark.
How are you?
Yeah, very good. Very good. Enjoying our lockdown week
How
4.
are you? Gosh, you are a lucky chap. I'm getting a little bit stir crazy, but I'm surviving. So we're here to talk about a couple of topics around IR35, just to give everyone a flavour of our experience and our view of how that has affected the landscape in which we work. So kick off with what was the rationale of introducing this in the first place? This seems as a topic that's been around for what seems an age, many, many years. The government's been talking about changing this, but why did they introduce it in the first place? Do you want to give us a feel of your views on that?
I think that the government's intention and the government's perception was that they were missing a massive revenue opportunity, probably on two sides. Employer national insurance, 13.8%, is a significant employer contribution. And I think the largest employers, in all honesty, had been utilising the fact that they wouldn't be liable for this component, and were engaging an ever greater percentage of their workforce through this route, the self-employed route, the limited company contractor. It was no longer purely an SME gig. It was for vast swathes of operational parts of their business, and an ever-increasing number of workers were being engaged in this fashion. So 13.8% became highly significant. In addition to that, you know, you've got the contractors side of it. Inevitably, they would need accounting guidance and advice through setting up as limited companies, and part of that guidance advice would be to steer them towards constructing their revenues in a fashion that was as efficient as possible. So in that way, HMRC was bound to see less tax revenues themselves from both sides of the equation.
So how just remind me how, when the announcement was made, because from a preparation perspective, it does seem as though we've been living this dream stroke nightmare, depends on your point of view, for about 18 months. But you know, certainly from my perspective, it didn't really start to go anywhere until, you know, last summer, end of the summer. Certainly the banks took the view. Or what was your view on how the banks and the finance sector handle the news?
Yeah, the contractor community had got used to there being sort of a surge of desire, a surge of interest from HMRC to close this loophole, and they had failed for many, many years. So there was a bit of, you know, shrug, I feel, from the community. They didn't really think that ultimately it would come to pass and it would come into operation. So initially, certainly the contractor community were a bit lethargic and a bit slow to sort of see what was heading their way. And I think the fact that the government announced it as something that would be coming in 2 years' time automatically became something that would get looked at next year. Automatically, it was a great, well, this is on the horizon, but we're not looking at it now. It doesn't got to be in for 2 years. So initially, that wasn't great. There wasn't much momentum.
And then you know, a few, because we work with the majority of the retail banks in the UK, every single one of them seemed to take the view around about the same time. Frankly, not interested in having a debate whether or not this is in or outside IR35. I'm just not prepared to have the debate with you. I'm going to mandate a quite black and white policy, which is we are no longer going to hire through this method, end of conversation, which from a HR perspective, I can see why they would want to do that, because there's absolutely no risk. From a procurement perspective, if you're working in a large organization, you must be thinking, I've just spent an inordinate amount of time getting my rate card sorted with my suppliers. and then all of a sudden I'm going to be faced with an potential increase in costs. And is that what happened, or do you have a different?
I think the banks realised that in making an assessment is difficult. Obviously, HMRC bring cases to court and call it wrong very regularly, and they should be the experts in this after all. So how would a mid-level person in HR or in IT or wherever you might place them operationally make continually the correct assessments? I think it's a genuine concern on behalf of the banks. How can we make the correct assessments of all these individuals, thousands, tens of thousands of them, with a degree of accuracy? And then, we're going to carry the risk of a certain percentage of them being incorrect. Also, you have had the banks were a little bit trapped by, many year on year having accepted that people were working on an outside IR35 basis, even though they had renewed their contract year after year. So then if they made an assessment that that individual was inside IR35, then why had the individual been deemed outside IR35 for the previous 1, 2, 3 plus years? So they weren't really interested in taking any steps down that path at all. So it then and thereafter had to be, that's not the model we're going to use going after this date. There won't be any. And
that's certainly what happened at pace from about August. We found, didn't we? I mean, we've spent, well, you more than any.
Yeah, lived and breathed it, really.
Dealt with the migration of a large number of, well, the majority, in fact, of our subcontract resource onto our own PAYE contracts. And I know you spent Q4 certainly last year dealing with that, and then we have COVID-19 comes in, and the government can the whole thing, and how's that played out with the with the finance, with the banks, but also the individuals. That's provided us with a different opportunity for greatness, I guess. Now that the whole thing's off for another year, the banks have taken the view.
Yeah,
so what? Continue, right?
It's just added ever more confusion, really, has been this delay. Obviously, they did it with 10 days to go or something, 2 weeks perhaps to go. So the whole transaction had happened. You'd had tens of thousands of people had either exited or accepted, an on-payroll solution. So it was done and dusted on the day they U-turned, and it really all it has achieved in the short term is just another layer of confusion. The banks haven't moved 1 millimeter. They have not. They have not given any indication that the government U-turn will change their method of bringing people onto their projects. So they haven't moved at all. Of course, naturally, the self-employed, the contractor community, have taken it as a signal that it may never happen. It is ultimately what the starting position. It was that they didn't think it would happen initially, and sure enough, in the very final death throes, it hasn't happened. Mm-hmm. So you've got an element in the contractor community that think that it will never come to pass. Of course, with COVID, generally speaking, the market has significantly dipped, and banks are now operating in this two-tier world where there are inside and outside IR35 contracts in the market, and they're only offering inside IR35 opportunities. But they're not impacted, to be honest, or not impacted to a very high degree, because the hiring has dipped so significantly, and so their existing previous contractor workforce isn't getting approached to a high degree to come on work on alternative outside IR35 contracts.
It's certainly made life harder growing our capability and getting the right caliber of person, because you're right, they've taken the view, well, I'm not interested in being a PAYE employee of a firm because I can continue for another year in the way that I've been continuing for the number of years. So, I mean, I that's a problem. That has been a problem for us. But I guess the only way you can overcome that is by providing, because there is this two-tier thing, isn't there? Even within the banks, there's a view that, bank employees are bank employees and contractors are contractors, even though they're not necessarily contractors in the traditional sense. They're employees of another firm.
Oh, very much.
So,
yeah, that's it. So
we've got to provide as an organization, and we do, I believe, provide that level of, coaching, mentorship, career progression for our employees. And that's really the only way I think we're going to attract and grow our business to assist our clients with those engagements. So I mean, that's certainly something that we've certainly ramped up in the last couple of months.
I think it's come naturally, certainly to the people within the impact team. We do know people on an individual basis. We know them individually, which is a good starting point for if you're looking to engage properly. There is a chance that clients still view their external resources as the contractors, even though, of course, as you say, that they'll still in some fashion as a contract workforce that they're not as engaged with as an employer would be. And I certainly think that there's a danger that the contractors could become sort of citizens of nowhere, and it's going to take an organisation like the Impact Team to engage fully with the individuals that are affected and step up to the plate and deliver some career progression, some way of valuing people and understanding people on a personal level, so they feel more fully engaged with that organisation. But also the individuals, of course, have got to be open to that as well. Yeah. Have to see themselves. They have to see that their circumstances have changed, and that an organisation like ours is a good place to be, both in the short term and the medium term, for their own career development and career progression.
So I agree. So where are we seeing the growth then? I mean, it's an odd time because everyone's working from home. Arguably, in some instances, that provides a great level of focus. You're more effective potentially because you're not distracted. In some cases, projects are sort of on a go. So we're certainly seeing an increased demand in certain areas. Just want to finish off the conversation. Where are those areas? Where are we seeing that we need to grow to satisfy the demand that's placed on us by our clients? What are we looking at?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly for us, if we looked at, say, the live requirements we have at the moment, and where we're looking to build our capability, Adobe AM platform, that's a massive talent shortage in that particular skill set. And as the growth of that product accelerates, those people will be in very high demand. And of course, COVID, whilst it affects the general marketplace, that won't change that particular need for that skill set. You've also got broader skill sets. IT security, it has over the last 2 years, 3 years, been an area where there has been a massive skills shortage, and of course we have opportunities for people in that area right now. Cloud migration, the banks are slowly more open to public cloud and away from their own on-prem server estates. Of course, they can't put everything, the regulator won't let them put everything on cloud, but where they can, there's a big incentive to kick those projects off. And so we're seeing a lot of demand in that area. So yeah, things haven't stopped, for sure, but I think as well, as the weeks go by, as people get more used to this working from home arrangement, as companies get more comfortable with an onboarding that's fully virtual, laptops get dispatched out, and people get engaged. As organisations become more comfortable with that, then I'm sure this will be a temporary dip, and we will enjoy, a lot of demand through the rest of this year.
Cool. So I guess the message there, if you've got AEM, Adobe skills, or cloud skills, or security,
Yeah,
get in touch, because we've got lots of demand.
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'll leave everyone with that, and enjoy your weekend, whatever your weekend brings. More gardening,
Thanks, Mark.
housework, I should imagine.
Yeah. I think the garden furniture, the garden furniture project, should start on Saturday.
Try and keep out of the wine cellar.
Yeah, I
Catch
will.
you later. Toodaloo.
Okay. Cheers, Mark.